Hello everyone. Today I'm going to share the complete process of copying Rembrandt's self-portrait. Rembrandt is one of my favorite artists. When I was studying in Europe, I often had the opportunity to go to museums to see his original works, the painting steps for this work. Also follow the conclusions drawn by European oil painting restoration experts, based on their analysis of classical oil painting techniques. As for the materials, what I mainly use here are still things that everyone can buy. Because after all, we are learning oil painting, not forging antiques. Of course, I'm not saying that my method is exactly the same as Rembrandt's. After all, when he was painting, I wasn't standing beside him watching. I know many viewers have their own understanding of Rembrandt's techniques. If your method can achieve better results, you are welcome to leave a comment under the video or post your own work for us all to study and discuss. Alright, without further ado, let's take a look at the specific steps of this painting. First, for this painting, I used a transparent primed canvas, which is a canvas with the natural color of the linen as the ground. So first, I use a pastel pencil to draw the outline on the canvas. Next, I use water-soluble oil paints, black and brown, to create the underpainting. At this stage, we can take more time to try to get the drawing as accurate as possible. There are actually many methods to check if the drawing is accurate, which I have mentioned in my courses, like the 3 mirrors of classical oil painting masters. After the underpainting dries, we start painting the Imprimatura, or base tone. The colors we use here are ivory black, dark brown, vermilion, yellow ochre, and mixing white. You can see this base tone has a brownish sepia feeling. We can easily mix this using these few colors, and when we paint it, remember not to apply it too thickly. Keep it thin. Apply a thin layer. You can also use a large brush, like this one. What I'm using here is called a badger blender, or oily painter's mop, to sweep the color, making it more even. After sweeping the background, we can start to define some details, like the hair and facial areas. The Imprimatura we are painting now is generally a rather grey color. Don't make the color too saturated. You can see that when I paint this Imprimatura, the paint is applied quite thinly. The brush I use is also a relatively soft one. The brush strokes, the paint, the color layers are quite thin. This way, we can more easily continue painting over it. The color of this Imprimatura layer is quite grey, meaning it doesn't have very strong color contrast or value contrast. Okay, the Imprimatura is about done like this. Actually, for this step, we don't need too much refined modeling. It's basically just laying down a reserved base tone that will play its role later, when we model the face. Alright, next, we will start modeling the face. For this step, vermilion, yellow ochre, and mixing white. Of course, you can also use flake white instead. These colors can be mixed into some commonly used skin tone colors, and then we start painting. These few colors are also quite commonly used in classical oil painting. In many of our previous painting demonstrations, I have shown you how to mix skin tones with these colors and how to make color charts with them. Here, I won't go into more detail. With the foundation of the previous 2 steps, painting this step should be relatively easy because we just need to apply the skin color onto the face. When painting in Rembrandt's style, we must pay attention what color we need to use. We mix it first, then apply it. It's best not to rub it back and forth on the face, which would blur the brush strokes. Another point is, when applying the color, don't cover the entire area completely. Don't block it all up. Let the grey underneath show through the gaps. Because in his later years, Rembrandt's skin condition was not very good. You can see on his face, nose, these areas have some reddish spots, like rosacea, symptoms like that. So, when painting his self-portraits, he accurately recorded this condition of his. When we paint, we need to make his face and nose areas redder. After painting this layer on the face, we can also paint Rembrandt's hat and hair areas. If we observe Rembrandt painting carefully, you will find many areas are painted very loosely. For example, his hair. the individual strands of hair. He actually used a palette knife for the end of a brush to scrape out the paint. Scratch, get out. That is, he scraped off the top layer of color, revealing a bit of the underlying tone. Let's look at his fur collar and his hand. These are actually done very loosely. When painting such areas, he probably just laid down one layer of Imprimatura, then used a rather rough, bristly brush to add some brushstrokes on top. And that's how it's done. Another point is, I think the brush he used for this was a very coarse one, meaning the kind of brush that might be quite old and a bit spayed or exploded. Using that kind of brush actually helps achieve his effect. If we use a good new brush, it's actually quite difficult to achieve this feeling. For example, look at this one I'm using now. It's a brush used for scumbling or softening brushstrokes, a bit like a makeup brush, but it's been used for a long time. It's a bit splayed, which happens to be perfect for painting this kind of streaky, strand-like effect. Alright, next we apply a third layer of color to the face. For this layer, we first do a glaze before painting. The colors used here are vermilion, yellow ochre, ivory black, a rather brownish color. When Rembrandt painted, is preferred medium with sun-thickened oil. You can try using this medium. I added some thinner to the sun-thickened oil. Then mixed it with the color we just mentioned, and first apply a glaze over the face. After glazing, we take a rag and wipe off the surface color. This way, some of the color sinks into the crevices of the paint layer. For this layer, I used an impasto medium in order to make the paint thicker. The impasto medium I use is rather dry. It feels quite dry to use, so when I use this medium, I can mix in a little bit of that sun-thickened oil to make it a bit more buttery. This works better for imitating the texture of Rembrandt's brushstrokes. After adding this impasto medium, you can see the paint's consistency becomes more viscous, and the brushstrokes become more pronounced. You get this feeling of paint buildup. In this layer, we can brighten the lighter areas of the skin and pile the paint thicker for the highlights. This way, the texture gradually emerges. Next, we paint his eyeball. You can see for his eyeball, I used ivory black, mixed with sun-thickened oil. Because if you use straight black, it can sink in, become matte, and turn grey. So after adding this oil, it appears brighter. Of course, when painting the eyes, we must be careful not to define them too rigidly. Many lines can be broken, can break the form, especially when the eye is set deep in the eye socket. We actually shouldn't be too deliberate in painting its boundary. After finishing this layer, I felt the texture might still be a bit lacking, so I did another round. The same operation. First, brush a glaze over the skin. Apply a glaze color, then continue to brighten it. This allows the glazed color to settle into the crevices of the brushstrokes. Then, on this basis, we apply highlights and add more brushstrokes. This makes the sense of depth richer, and the painting looks better. When I saw Rembrandt's self-portraits in the museum, when his paintings were displayed alongside other works, you would find Rembrandt's paintings have particularly rich colors. The skin tones on his face don't look uniform or flat. Instead, they have a feeling of many layers. This makes his works, compared to others, appear more advanced or sophisticated. In our own painting process, we can also learn from his approach. So that's pretty much the process of my copying this Rembrandt work. Every time I copy a master's work, I always gain some new insights. The complete process of this painting has been added to my online course. Interested students are welcome to leave a message for inquiries. I can predict that under this video, there will certainly be many people trying to educate me, saying Rembrandt shouldn't be painted this way, but should be painted that way. Again, as I said, how Rembrandt painted, I certainly didn't see it. I wasn't there beside him. But if anyone has a better method, please feel free to post your finished work. That way, we can have a reference to see if your method can achieve better results. Then I can also learn from you. Okay, that's all for today's content. I am oil painting teacher siwei. See you in the next video.